What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Whiskey Jedi. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. Hope everyone's doing great out there. A little bit of a different look. The camera setting is a little bit different here right now. We are going through an incredibly massive heat wave here in Sacramento. And as everyone knows, I do this show in my garage. This is where my setup is. And I am trying to keep as many or as little as power outlet stuff plugged in as possible right now. So I'm taking my mic and camera out of the equation and just using everything that the computer is giving me for today. So please let me know how it sounds. I can't hear it on my end. So please let me know if the audio is okay. If I need to switch it up, I will. But that is why the camera looks a little different right now. That is why my mic sounds a little different right now. As why you can see a little bit more of the garage back here in the corner, my hot toy boxes, stuff like that. So, but yeah, we're just going to move ahead with the show, kind of just dive into a bunch of stuff here very, very soon. I'm very excited. I obviously didn't do a show last week. It was very busy. Work has been kind of kicking my ass lately, guys. It's been a lot, both frustrating and just kind of tiring and exhausting. And then on top of that, we left Thursday afternoon for a flight to visit our family in Idaho. So I just didn't have time for a show last week. And that is okay. That's absolutely okay. So I was able to do 3 straight weeks when I brought this show back, and I missed one because of things going on. And here I am catching back up, and I'm super excited to dive into everything that we're going to be talking about tonight because we got some massive topics, to discuss. TV shows, a movie that I'm looking forward to, but I'm also hesitant about, and then a recommendation at the end of the show that I've been doing on a weekly basis, which has been a total blast. But I'm going to be recommending a movie tonight, which is a lot of fun. So I hope everyone's doing great out there. I will say off the bat, if you're watching live, everything I'm talking about includes spoilers. So that includes everything that is updated to this moment right now. This is Tuesday night at 7:37 p.m. I have watched everything. I pushed the show off just a tad bit, so I was able to watch tonight's episode of The Acolyte. And so, yeah, I'll be talking The Boys. I'll be talking The Acolyte. I'll be talking House of the Dragon. And then, obviously, Gladiator 2, which you see there on the left-hand side, I guess. So let's go and dive into it. Let's talk about our first topic tonight. Actually, before I do so, I do want to say hello to everybody in the chat. Thank you guys for joining me. I appreciate you all. Jane, it's really good to see you. Hope you've been doing great, crushing it. Thank you for joining me live. I really appreciate it. Booze, John Pierce, Sebastian, what's up, my man? Appreciate you guys being here and talking these things with me. If you guys have any questions, comments, obviously talk along with me as I discuss these things that we're going to be talking about. And if you maybe haven't seen anything, just mute me. And once you see these colors, these topics will be in color. So The Boys here in just a second will be green. Once it moves down a notch, that means I am done talking about that topic. So anybody for spoiler reasons, if they don't want to hear anything, you can mute me. And until you see that color switch, you'll be spoiler free. So let's go and dive into our first topic tonight. We're going to be talking about The Boys to start things off. We're in season 4, and I believe we are 6 episodes through, either 5 or 6. I believe it's 6. I believe last week's episode of The Boys was number 6, and my goodness, what an episode. Now, I didn't get to talk about the previous episode. I really haven't talked about the show in general on this since I started the show back up. I've kind of just been watching the show and enjoying it. I've had some other topics that I put in front of it. But yeah, so I want to dive into this a little bit because you can see this question down here below. And for audio people, the question I've posed to myself is The Boys still just the right amount, or is it too much? And everyone knows who watches The Boys how far they actually go within blood, gore, just kind of like absolutely insanity, diabolical craziness. And I just realized that my lights aren't on behind me, so let me go ahead and flip those on. Because what is a show without neon lights? There we go. Or backlights, I should say. Not neon light, but backlights. So yeah, I'm curious on what everybody else thinks of The Boys. Because season 4 so far, And I don't remember every part of every season. Every season has been crazy and, you know, just insane in their own right. They've all had their moments. And that's what this show is. We accept the show for what it is. We love the show for what it is. But to me, outside of the orgy scene in season 3, which we kind of have to put that on its, you know, in its own little category over here on this side, it very much feels like season 4 is kind of pushing it a little too much. Just a little too much. It now feels like, because they've earned the right and because they've earned our trust as viewers, that they can now do whatever they want. They can, not that they're doing this, but just for the sake of it fitting into this category, it is jumping the shark just a tad bit with things, right? Like, it's giving people powers and abilities and then just absolutely murdering and blowing people up because that's what those abilities are. And Booze brought it up, you know, spoilers for the most recent episode. The Simon Pegg character who plays Huey's father, Hugh, he was put into a coma the previous episode, and at the end of the very last, or the 5th episode, I think it is, at the very end of the episode 2 episodes ago, as confusing as that is, Huey's mother, who came back into the picture, gave him an authentic vial of V that Huey brought in, but then decided not to give to him. His mother gave it to him. The episode ended with him waking up, and then we see what he is given in this episode, but it comes with some massive consequences. He's running through walls. He doesn't remember who he is. It seems like he's having some sort of personality disorder. But with that, he's running through people and ripping hearts out and stopping, phasing into people, and then stopping and blowing things up. And that's a lot. Like, that's a lot to process for, you know, 40, 50-minute episodes. And simultaneously, while this is happening, we are also following our main characters of, you know, the boys with Newman. And there's a group of these characters, that main characters that were Starlight, you know, they're all there. They're on this farm, this Gen V farm that Newman has put together to try to mass produce the, let's call it poison, that kills everyone who has Gen V in their system. It targets soups. And they're on this farm where we learn that all these animals have been experimented on, and there's been an outbreak. So now, on top of the things that are happening with Hugh and the regular boy stuff with Homelander and all that, right? Now we're getting Gen V'd up animals who are absolutely psychotic, flying sheep with crazy mouth things that want to eat your faces off. Bunnies that have tentacles coming out of their stomach. It just feels like sometimes they're doing things to do it because they've earned the right. Because we've been hooting and hollering for 3 seasons now that the show has been incredible, right? Not everyone, but the majority of people. It's been highly rated. You know, it's popular. People love it. It's crazy. It's wild. It's unlike anything out there. And now that they've earned the right, they're just doing it, or for what it comes from my experience, they're doing it to just do it. And to me, that's where I kind of like start to scale back a little bit. I start to reassess on what I'm thinking, or rather what I'm watching. And I love the boys. I love the boys so much. I love the characters. I love, you know, the kind of political type of story that they're telling, but also these, you know, all of these other characters that are so important to everything. Butcher and MM and just all these characters. But it definitely feels like sometimes during these missions, they're throwing these things in just for the hell of it, because they can, and because that's what the show is. And I never got that feeling while watching the first 3 seasons. Not once. And again, if I went back and watched it, I may very well think differently. But from what I can think of right now in this moment, I do not remember ever feeling that way. You know, just thinking back, like within the first episode or so, we had that guy who cloned himself, and there was that sauna scene. And was that necessary? No, probably not, right? With Firecracker's assistant. That wasn't necessary. So yeah, and again, I like the show. I'm invested in the story they're telling with season 4 so far. And I want to see everything progress forward and you know, see this conclusion, because we've been told that season 5 is the conclusion. Like, that's going to be definitive ending between Butcher, Homelander, and you know, Vought, the boys, everything. I just wish that they wouldn't do things just to do things. That's all I'm saying. Now, quickly, I want to get to a couple comments because I have seen a couple come across. Andy, what's up, my man? Thank you so much for popping in here. I dropped off early into season 3 because it was all too much for me. Hey, see, there we go. I would not be surprised if you're in part of the majority, if I'm being honest. It would not shock me if I heard many people, you know, having the same reason. Sebastian, I actually agree that sometimes it has gotten too much in season 4. I was worried that Gen V was going to also have that problem, but they had a good balance. I agree. Gen V was very good in balancing that. There were definitely some crazy moments, right? We had the girl that shrunk that went through some stuff with her own identity. Obviously, the main character deals with blood and how she manipulates blood. And there's some stuff in that show, but it was all warranted for everything that was happening. They weren't doing things just to do things. I agree with you. John, too many side missions? Very well could be. Because so far, those side missions, now that I can think of them, the side missions are including all of this extra gore and craziness. I mentioned 2 of them. The farm, which was last episode. Huey, I actually mentioned 3 of them. The farm, Huey, and then earlier in the season with Firecracker's assistant. The Firecracker stuff. And it's hard to say side missions because ultimately those have all played into the main storyline, right? Huey losing his father. It's a big storyline that affects him and how he's going to be and how he's going to operate. And as much as Firecracker's whole thing episode where we kind of discovered who he was, or who she was rather, was, you know, to the main storyline, the assistant part just very much felt like it was thrown in there just to be thrown in there. So yeah, it very well could be too many side missions because we definitely, and I will say, as much as I am enjoying season 4, which I am, I do wish that we had more of the main conflict going on. It kind of feels like we're just in major setup mode. We've only seen Butcher and Homelander come face to face once. And it was the first or second episode where Butcher was trying to save the kid. I'm forgetting the kid's name at the moment. In the kitchen. They came face to face then. We saw Huey almost get blown up by Homelander. But again, never coming face to face. I do wish that we kind of moved along a little faster. Because I want to see these things go down, right? Like, I want to see what's happening with the main thing of trying to get rid of Soups and trying to take Homelander down. So, because we're into season 4, season 5 is the last. I don't want everything weighted for season 5 or just sitting there for season 5. And hopefully it's not. Booze, fighting off chickens with the vice president? She is the vice president, right? So I think she's the vice president-elect. I think they're going for the presidency and vice presidency, I think, if I'm not mistaken. At this moment in time, I believe she's Senator Newman, and she's in the running to be vice president. If they hadn't already won. They might have won, and I might have just like glanced right over it. I don't know. John, the shots they took at Disney, Marvel, DC. Yeah, I mean, it's the perfect opportunity to do so. It's a show about superheroes and who has bigger superheroes than Marvel and DC, right? Sebastian, I thought one scene in season 4 that was too much for me was the ice rink scene. Yeah, see, that was the Homelander scene I was talking about with Huey. Yeah, where the actress who plays the Soups got sliced in half. a skate cutting fingers off, and like it definitely feels like sure, you can do some of that, like Homelander's laser beams cutting someone in half. That makes sense. He's trying to cut Huey down, but we don't need to see like skates going over hands and stuff like that. Like it just kind of feels unnecessary at times. So I'll continue to update on the boys. I don't know if I'll do it weekly. We're halfway through or almost over. If it's 8 episodes, I'm just going to wait until all 8 episodes are out, and then I'll review the season. I'll talk about the season. But we'll see. It might be 10. I'm not sure. I don't know the episode count. Usually 8's the number. But I'll definitely keep updated on the boys as the next couple episodes are released. All right, let's move along here to topic number 2 of the evening. We have our first official look at Ridley Scott's Gladiator film. Let me go ahead and bring up... I'm not logged in on this computer, actually. I need to log in all my stuff on here. Let's see. Gladiator 2 images. So, Vanity Fair, they dropped a first look a few days ago on Ridley Scott's Gladiator 2. That is the official title. There's no subtitle to this film. It was a whole behind-the-scenes thing where we got to see quotes from the actors and Ridley Scott. We got a bunch of new images with these actors. You know, Paul Mescal, who is the main lead of this film. And then you have Pedro Pascal. You have Denzel Washington. You have Joseph Quinn, who is playing one of the emperors, because it's brothers who are the emperors. And then the return, of Connie Nielsen, who was in the original film, which is super cool. So for those who don't know, and I think I've said it multiple times on, a ton of other things, but the first Gladiator movie is my number 3 movie of all time. My number 3. It is an all-time film for me. And so when they announced this, when this was announced that Ridley Scott was coming back to direct a sequel, that we were going to be following this specific story, I have always been hesitant, and I continue to be hesitant. I'm still hesitant right now. But, and it's hard to judge anything off of this, but I'm judging it off of it right now. The images are making me feel good about it. They are. I'm not going to be able to say whether or not the film is good or not just based off of images. That's never going to happen, right? How many movies would have been incredible if the images were a telling of how good that movie would be? But keeping, everything else out on the side right now and just evaluating these images that we're getting of, Paul Mescal rubbing dirt in his hands as Maximus would, or him facing off with Pedro Pascal, or seeing, a swagged up Denzel Washington on a throne, or Joseph Quinn in the getup that he has on. I like what I'm seeing. It feels and looks like Gladiator. Doesn't shock me, because Ridley Scott is the one who created the original film. It's his world. So why wouldn't he know how to make this movie look and feel like Gladiator? I'm enjoying so far, even though we don't have a trailer, which is coming soon. I don't know if I'll watch it. I'm so hesitant on it right now that I might watch it just to kind of see where I feel afterwards. The other thing that kind of just is in the way of this, outside of the images or the fact that they're making a sequel, is Ridley Scott himself. Ridley Scott is not the same director as he was once before, and especially not when he made the original Gladiator film back in 2000. It's been 24 years. I'm longer, technically, since they filmed, but it's been 24 years since that film came out. He's made a lot of stinkers since then. A lot. Now, there's been some good ones. There really has been. The one that stood out to me immediately was The Martian, obviously, right? Let me just look through some of his past films. Like House of Gucci was not received well. Napoleon was not received very well. The Last Duel was received decently. I actually did like the Last Duel with Matt Damon and Adam Driver. All the Money in the World which was the Mark Wahlberg film about billionaire J. Paul Getty. And then you have Alien Covenant, which was kind of received The Martian, Exodus Gods and Kings, which was an absolute just bomb dumpster fire. The Christian Bale, Joel Edgerton movie about Egypt. The Counselor, which is probably one of the worst films we've seen over the last 20 years. And then Prometheus, Robin Hood, Body of Lies, American Gangster, right? It kind of started to fall off at The Counselor. That's where the wheels kind of started coming unraveled. So I just don't know how to feel because of that reason. And because of Ridley Scott's track record and him wanting to return to something that was so glorious, incredible, and try to recapture the magic that movie had, it just feels like that's not going to happen. I don't want to be a negative Nancy about it, but the biggest reason why I'm acting this way is because of how special that first movie is with me. I love that movie so much, not just because of the movie and because of Russell Crowe's performance and the idea of a Gladiator film, right? We don't get those types of movies anymore. But I hold that movie so special is because it's one of the movies my dad and I were watching on repeat constantly. Had the VHS tape. It was always on TV. It was constantly on just play in our household. I was obviously old enough at a certain time, in the mid-2000s where I was able to watch something like that. And so I have reasons outside of it just being a good film of why I want this movie to succeed. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, look, the images are a great sign. Like, they look great. I think Paul Mescal is a great lead. He's very much been in smaller movies to this point. Nothing massive where people are going to recognize him. This is the movie that's going to put him on the map. If he sets in with an incredible performance, if the movie is just good, if the movie is just good and his performance is great, or he holds the film, he leads the film, then I think he's off to incredible things. Like, I think he's already an incredible actor. He's already recognized inside the film community, but he's not recognized by the mass audiences who watch movies. This is the movie to do that. But then you throw in people like Pedro Pascal. Awesome, cool, can't wait to see him in a Gladiator movie. Denzel Washington. Don't get to see him much anymore, right? He kind of picks his projects. He's very particular about him. He chose this. Joseph Quinn, who is on his rise to stardom. Stranger Things 5, A Quiet Place Day 1, which is out right now, playing Johnny Storm for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I mean, all signs should point to the movie being great. To the movie being awesome and good and everything. But we'll see. It really does all rely on Ridley Scott. It does. Which is so weird to see because he's such a big name in the director's circle. Like, he's a synonymous name. You know who he is. The movies he's done over the years. So, we'll see. Look, I don't like being negative about it, but we're going to have to wait and see. I'm probably going to cave on the trailer because I need to see if this movie's going to look decent. Trailers, for the majority of time, are nowhere near a good telling of how good a movie is actually going to be. That's all on editors. Editors can do an incredible job of the trailer, and the movie can absolutely suck. It can also do the absolute vice versa effect. Edge of Tomorrow. Trailers were terrible. Movie was incredible. So we'll see. John, I want to stick with you on this one, man, but Gladiator is special to me, so I don't know. I'll see when the trailer comes out how much I'll be able to hold myself. Comes out next week, I believe, next Tuesday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, somewhere around there. I don't know why they chose that date, but I think July 9th is the date that popped in my head for some reason. So we'll see. Crossing fingers, though. Crossing fingers that we get a worthy Gladiator sequel. All right, I didn't mention it up top because it was in the overlay, and you can see it there in the corner. I kind of added a new little addition to the overlay just to showcase the whiskeys that I am drinking while I do these shows, the ones that I'm not reviewing, just the ones I'm sipping on while talking topics. But tonight I'm having NELSON Brothers Classic Bourbon with me. I've done NELSON Bros on the channel before, I believe twice, maybe just the once, but I have had 2 bottles in the past. And if you go back to the channel not last year, but the year before, I believe. They actually sent me a care package with 2 bourbons, a bunch of swag. It was like a swag bag with a couple bottles of whiskey. It was very cool. I did a box reveal on the channel. I was very lucky. Big shout out to them for sending me some incredible whiskeys. This is not one of them. I drank both of those already because they were so good. I was gifted this whiskey by my fellow podcast cohort, Gio Ramos. Gio's been traveling for work over the last year. He's been all over the United States. And one of the places he did go was Nashville. And he went and visited the Nelson Bros distillery, Greenbrier Distillery. So he went there, did a tour, and he graciously brought me back a bottle of whiskey as a thank you for doing all his overlays and thumbnails and stuff. So this one's from Gio. I just opened it tonight. It's the classic bourbon. It's just a straight Nashville, Tennessee bourbon. There's some cool details here on the back about the history of the company and kind of how they came to be. But the bourbon so far has been really good, very smooth, decent bite to it for a bourbon. And it's an overall really solid bourbon. So cannot complain. All right, let's get into our next topic here. And it's a big one. It's very much a big one because I just am fresh off the boat of watching the most recent episode. Let's go ahead and discuss The Acolyte. So we are now through 6 episodes of The Acolyte. It's funny because when I was going to do the show when I was going to do the show last week, I basically had the same topic in mind. It was the exact same topic just by watching 5 episodes, not 6. Watching episode 6 hadn't really changed my mind. There's a few other information tidbits in there, but I still wanted to ask the same question because the biggest thing coming out of episode 5, outside of the incredible lightsaber combat, choreography, everything, was the question of Kamir, if I'm saying his name right, I apologize. Kamir, and the mention of the word Sith, dark side user. He's obviously, using the Force in different ways than the Jedi of current. And the specific question of, is he the master or the apprentice? Now, the most recent episode could very well have answered that, depending on how you took it. Everyone has different, iterations of things. They take things differently. They soak information up in different ways. And there's a couple different ways that we can talk about this. One is he an actual Sith? That's an obvious question. Was what he was saying of, Jedi like you might call me a Sith? Not directly saying he's a Sith, but Jedi like you may think of me as a Sith. Or is he just a dark side user wanting to wield his own power? And it's interesting because there's dialogue information that very much points to him being a Sith. Let me just backtrack. So outside of him, with that terminology of saying Jedi like you might think of me as a Sith, and some other, small words here and there in episode 5. Episode 6 is where most of the information came from regarding his past. He was once a Jedi a long time ago. He mentioned words like anger and fear, loss, all things that relate to being a Sith. He mentioned the power of 2. I don't know if that's the exact dialogue. So I'm sure someone will correct me in the chat. I don't know if that's the exact dialogue he used, but he said the power of 2, which can relate to the rule of 2 for the Sith. And he also mentioned how he was basically thrown away by his master. Now, was he referring to a Jedi master, or was he referring to someone else who didn't think he was powerful enough to wield something like the dark side? So there's a lot of things that are pointing to him being an actual Sith, or wanting to be a Sith anyway. Big G, what's up, Big G? Mentioned that it could just be a Sith fanboy. It's very, very possible. When this show first originally came out, we had all talked about how the word acolyte kind of referred to like a Sith fanboy in a way. Someone who admired the dark side. So it's very possible that's what's happening here. Now, on the flip side, this is just a theory, but it's a fun theory, and it's a theory that's very much making its way around the internet. And so, yes, of course, I want to bring it up and talk about it because it's cool. And I think it's very possible that this could actually happen because of certain moments that happen at the end of the last episode and kind of how he is operating himself. Could he be the very start of the Knights of Ren? Now, again, this is just a theory that I saw on the internet. It's not something that I'm fully endorsing or believing in, but because we are on the topic, I wanted to bring it up. Could he be the beginning of the Knights of Ren? He has traits that are just like the Knights of Ren. If you look at what is considered to be the first Knight of Ren from the comic books, he has a very similar look of that Knight of Ren. Or of Ren, I should say. And that would be a cool way to connect it to everything. And Big G, you are correct. That's why I brought this up. Now, this is why people are running with this, is because at the end of episode 5, when he is talking over Osha's body, not dead body, don't worry, just body, she's laying there, she's unconscious, you can hear Kylo Ren's theme playing. That and let's not forget that this week, because of course she's going to be asked about it and information is going to come out about it from the trades, Leslie Headland was asked about it. She said it's there for a reason. Now, as Star Wars fans, we typically look into everything way too much, which is probably what I'm doing right now or what everybody else online is doing with this whole Knight of Ren theory. But it very much is possible. And honestly, if I had to choose between the two, I would way rather see a Knight of Ren than a Sith. I think that is awesome because it fits way more in line with what we know from the prequels, which is what all those assholes around the internet are arguing about with canon and the Jedi didn't know that, they've been extinct for 1,000 years, etc., etc. Morons. If you're watching this, just shut your trap. If he does turn out to be a Knight of Ren or the beginning of the Knights of Ren or whatever, that then fits in line with what we know from the prequels, where they talk about how the Sith have been extinct for 1,000 years or a millennia. A millennia. They have not been seen, heard of, etc. for a millennia. Now, if he does turn out to be a Sith, they obviously have to tell certain story plot points to be able to course correct to match that. Like a cover-up, which is very possible. But I wanted to bring it up because it's a very interesting question of, well, first of all, what is he? Is he a Sith? Is he a Knight of Ren? Is he just a dark side user? Is he the Acolyte himself? Or a former Acolyte who now believes he can take on an Acolyte, a pupil. He keeps using the word pupil, which I love. Not an apprentice, not a Padawan, a pupil. I love that. So that's one question. But the second question is, if he is a Sith, because I don't believe this would line up with him being a Knight of Ren. If he is a Sith, is he the master, the true master, or is he actually the apprentice? Now, just running with this theory for a hot second. If he is a Sith, which is very plausible that he could be, I believe he's an apprentice. I don't think he's the master. I think he's an apprentice. I think he's working for someone else out there, or in classic Sith tendencies, he's training someone to help kill his master. He thought it was May, doesn't believe it's May anymore. Now he's trying to get Osha on his side, which is extremely interesting from this last episode. She put on the mask. She seems to be reconnecting herself with the Force, but not in a good way. Super cool storytelling with that, kind of flipping of the side for the twins, which I think is very interesting. Soul is a whole different story. That's like a whole hour episode of just this show on Soul and where he kind of is in his story, because they've kind of been dragging along whatever he did back in the day. I just want to know. We have 2 episodes left. Just tell me already. So the majority of this conversation has been about Kamir just because I think it's the most interesting at this point. He's by far, at this moment in time, to me, the most interesting part of this show. I think they've done a great job of building him up and then like laying breadcrumbs the last 2 episodes of what eventually it will be a reveal. I hope anyway, either next episode or the episode after. Booze, that mask totally fits into the Knights of Ren's look. Totally. If you don't know what it looks like already, just Google Star Wars comics Knight of Ren and see the original Knight of Ren mask, and it looks like him. Jane, welcome back. You entered at a very interesting time. I just want to clarify because I know you'll come at me in the comments if you feel a certain way. I'm not saying he's a Knight of Ren. I'm just talking about the theory that is online. Because, of course, Star Wars fans are running with that like crazy. I posed the question of whether or not he's a Sith based on his dialogue and how there are certain things being thrown around that definitely point to him being a Sith. But then I also brought up the idea from the theory going around the internet that he could very well be the beginnings of the Knights of Ren. A different type of dark side user that has been around for a very long time. Which I think would be very cool. I think it would be very cool. It's different. It's unexpected. And if it does happen, no one ever thought that the Acolyte would deal with the Knights of Ren. Everyone's kind of been talking about, like, we should get a Knights of Ren show. We should get, a Knights of Ren movie. What if they just never told us and this, in fact, is a Knights of Ren show? That'd be cool. I'm not saying I believe it, but it would be cool. Because so far, I'm totally all in on the idea of Kamir. I just want to know more about him. I just want to know where he comes from. I want to know who taught him the arts of the dark side, if it wasn't himself. And I do want to say this for those watching. In tonight's episode, we did see him take his shirt off and he had a scar on his back. And this is when the mention of him being basically thrown away from his master was. 100% believe that his master was Vernestra. 100% believe that scar is from a light whip. What other type of weapon could make that type of scar other than a light whip or lightsaber, but a light whip? Not to mention that we saw the scar and the light whip for the first time in the same episode. And that Vernestra Rwoh is now on the hunt on foot outside of the temple, going about her business, doing her thing after the events of last episode. I am 100% for Vernestra Rwoh being her master, or his master. That would be sick. Because everyone's been wondering, not wondering, I guess. The people that know Vernestra is like, okay, she's in the show. What is her role? She's not part of the High Council. She's kind of on the lower tier of what Jedi, from what we understand anyway. I could be wrong, but I'm getting the idea that she's not on the High Council. She's not one of the top dogs. Why is that? And why is she in this show if she's just going to be in the Jedi Temple, if there's not going to be any information about her? Now, that's a cool way to go about things if Kamir ends up being her former Padawan. That would be badass. And he either failed or he had too many feelings or something went wrong and she tossed him out to the side, landing him where he is. And we got to keep in mind, whoever trained him has also got to be powerful. Because the dude is awesome. He's a badass. He is an absolute badass. So that's currently where I'm at. There's still a lot to talk about with this show, but I wanted to focus on Kamir because I think it's very interesting. The story points we're learning about him slowly. And I think there's going to be a lot revealed, hopefully next episode, about her, or about him, about May, Osha, and hopefully Vernestra Rwoh gets thrown back into the mix a lot more now that all the other Jedi are dead. No more Yor, no more Jeki. What are we doing here? Everyone we were following and falling in love with has died. And Saul is just like I don't know what's going on with Saul. I I just need to know his secret. He clearly has one. Just tell me his secret. Jane, let's see. We got a comment here before I move on. I think he may become the first Ren. See? I love it. I think he may be one of Darth Tenebros. Tenebros. I forget how you pronounce that name. I know exactly what you're talking about. Side apprentices that were left to the side for Plagueis, so he starts his own group. I would not hate that. And that's something that we have to keep in mind. That's something that we have to keep in mind. When does Plagueis come into play? Because we're in that time era. We are in that era. So if they do future seasons, if they do a second season or a third season, when does Plagueis come into play? Does Kamir fit into that storyline now? That would be sick. I'd be all for that. Jane, I'm with you. I think he definitely is the first Ren. I'm for it. And yes, Andy and Booze, when they cut to Jecky's body, that was just rude. That was just uncalled for. Deadlock in the eyes, too. I didn't need to see it. I did not need to see it. But that's what this show's been about. Dead Jedi, essentially, is what this show is. All right, I'll keep you guys up to date. I'm definitely going to cover the Acolyte on a weekly basis. There's only 2 episodes left. So I will do episode 7 next week, and I'll do episode 8, the finale, the week after that. Hopefully I have a guest for that. I'd love to have a guest for that discussion. Maybe some Star Wars people, you never know. But let's go ahead and move on to what is probably the biggest show on the planet right now. And that is House of the Dragon. We are 3 episodes into the second season of House of the Dragon. And I think it's awesome. Now, I will say, quickly, I was a little bit hesitant on the first 2 episodes. I felt like there was a lot of, just build up and a lot of kind of different things going on, and they weren't really getting to the point of everything. But then episode 3 came, and it's totally back on track. It's 100% back on track, and I'm loving every second of it. Episode 3 was incredible. The stories that they are telling, or the story that they are now telling with this season, I love. I love the characters involved. I love the characters' roles in this season. I'm loving how they're going about certain relationships with characters. I think it's great. I love seeing Rhaenyra and Rhaenys get closer, and her and Rhaenyra, taking counsel from Rhaenys. They're setting up Game of Thrones, as we saw in this most recent episode. Dany's eggs were sent off where they were found in Game of Thrones. Her dragons are now out there. They set that up very nicely. That was super cool. A lot happened in this episode. Sir Criston Cole, who is the biggest douchebag on the planet right now, is trying to basically get everybody he possibly can on his way to Harrenhal to fight for King Aegon. He's trying to sway anybody he possibly can while going to Harrenhal and trying to capture that castle. And then you have everything going on with, Rhaenyra's council and how they're pressuring her, and the White Worm lady who is now involved in the council, which I think is super cool. Kind of going to be like her secret assassin, not assassin, her secret agent, if you will, who knows everything about the Red Keep and King's Landing. Everything with Rhaenyra's children, being sent off to be basically saved away from war. And then you have everything going on in King's Landing. And Aegon and Aemon and Alicent. And there's a lot to unpack, obviously. The blood and cheese stuff I know Big Chi mentioned. I've been told that it was more messed up in the book. Thank God they didn't show it, because I was a mess after watching just that part. I thought it was just way too much. But I understand that they had to do it to a point, because in the book it's way, way worse. The biggest part that I want to talk about, and it's on the thumbnail, is the final moments of episode 3 between Alicent and Rhaenyra. Some of the best acting we've seen, not just in this show, but in Game of Thrones in general. The two of them together, more than likely seeing them together for the last time. We have not seen Emma Darcy or... Oh my God, why am I blanking on her name? That's really going to piss me off. Come on. What is the name? Olivia Cook. We have not seen Emma Darcy or Olivia Cook together since last season. And I think this was the final time we got to see them together. Because war is coming. And Alicent sealed that fate. Rhaenyra did everything she possibly could to avoid war. She snuck into King's Landing. She snuck into a private sanctuary where Alicent was. And she tried to do her best to save everything she could by talking to Alicent. And it came at a cost. It came at a cost of war. War is coming. And there's no way around it anymore. That conversation was important for multiple reasons. One, Rhaenyra now fully believes that war is on its way. There's no going back. She now understands that there's nothing she can do to fix it. There's nothing she can do to stop it. And two, Alicent now knows she was wrong. She now knows that Aegon was never supposed to be king. Because of the Song of Ice and Fire, because of Viserys talking about Aegon's name didn't mean his son Aegon. He was talking about Aegon the Conqueror. And of course, Alicent took it as his son and ran with it. But being the mother that she is, being the she's not a witch, but being the witch that she is, she still believes, or she is at least lying to make sure Rhaenyra doesn't think or realize she knows what's going on. Good night, bud. Hi. You have a good sleep, okay? I'll come say goodnight to you when I'm done. Bye, buddy. You look good in your stars. Sorry, I had to say goodnight to the kiddo. Yeah, look, Alicent now fully understands that she was wrong and that Rhaenyra was right and that she is the rightful heir to the throne and that is her throne. But because her son is the king, because she is in the position that she is in with the people around her, there is nothing she can do but lie. There is nothing that she can do but protect her children. She's put them in that situation. That is 100% on her. It's 100% on her. It's 100% on her father. But now she has to protect what she has. And it now comes at the cost of war. I'm not going to say the war is fully on her because certain things have obviously played out over the course of a number of episodes. But it could have been avoided from that conversation between Rhaenyra and Alicent. Rhaenyra did the 100% right thing by sneaking in and talking to her. The 100% right thing. But Alicent, being Alicent, just didn't accept it. And now war's coming. And I think we're going to be seeing a very, very, very different type of Rhaenyra going forward because she is now all in on the idea of war and protecting her own. Fighting for her throne. And also, not only does Alicent know she was wrong, but now Rhaenyra knows the full truth of everything, right? She asked, like, what did my father say? Did he mention my name? And then Alicent mentioned how he talked about the Song of Ice and Fire, and so that clicks in Rhaenyra's head as a Targaryen. That doesn't click to Alicent. She doesn't know that. Rhaenyra said, he spoke to you of the Song of Ice and Fire. That to her is like, oh, that is my throne. I'm fighting for what's mine. And I can't wait to see it. The Dance of Dragons is coming. War is coming. There's going to be casualties. There's going to be death. It's going to be destruction. But I can't wait. We have been waiting for so long to see some insanely massive dragon fighting, and it's on the way. Aemond, Aegon. We've seen, clips of Aegon going to fight alongside Sir Criston Cole. We have Moondancer and Caraxes and all these dragons at the disposal of the Targaryens and Rhaenyra's side, Team Black. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be absolutely crazy. So I'm loving everything the House of Dragon is giving us. I think it's been great so far. Episode 3 definitely turned me around on the first 2 episodes. It made those episodes better because of how episode 3 turned out, which I'm so thankful for. I'm so thankful that I was able to wait to talk about it because last week, if I had talked about the House of Dragon on an episode, it would have been a completely different conversation. The conversation would have been so different if I had just talked about the first 2 episodes. So I'm thankful that I had to, put pause on 1 week and talk about talk about these 3 episodes because it's been great. Sebastian, the Targaryens need to think of new names of their children. As we see with Aegon, it causes problems. Not only that, but there's 3 characters in the show, 3 women on Team Black that are Rhaenyra, Rhaenys, and Rhaena. Targaryens need to think of new names in general. It's all just like longer and shorter versions of each other, which is how they do things. They're inbreds, so that's how they do things. But it's just interesting. Rhaenyra, Rhaenys, and Rhaena. So, but yeah, I will be keeping an update on House of the Dragon on a weekly basis for sure, because I love the show. It's been great. Sunday nights, it's the thing I look forward to. Because of vacation this last weekend, we didn't get home till super late on Sunday. I actually didn't watch this episode until yesterday. Last night, actually. I stayed up late to watch it because I needed to watch it before today. But yeah, I'll be watching, just like The Acolyte. Excuse me. I will be keeping tabs on this show on a weekly basis because chaos is going to ensue. It's going to be absolutely nuts. Big G! Thank you so much for the comment. Even though I know how he dies in the book, I wish that Baela would have turned Sir Criston Cole into Sir Crispy Cole. I love the reference. I love it. That's awesome. Sir Crispy Cole. I'm going to call him that from now on. I 100% agree with you. I wish that she would have turned Moondancer into an absolute fire monster and burned that forest to the ground. But I understand why. Because Sir Criston Cole, I didn't read the books, but Sir Criston Cole is currently headed to a direction where one Daemon Targaryen is. And that'll be interesting. So I'm looking forward to seeing everyone die because I know everyone dies. That's the whole point of it. Like, we know from Game of Thrones that the whole point of the show is just to kill everybody. Most people, I should say. There's going to be some people left over, but the majority of the main players are going bye-bye. I don't know how. I don't know when. But I know the majority of them are dying a very terrible death. So I look forward to that. I know that it happens within the Dance of the Dragons. I just don't know when the Dance of the Dragons is taking place because when that does take place, this show shifts massively into a different direction. So I'm curious if the Dance of the Dragons takes place this year or if it takes place next season, which next season won't be until 2026. So we'll see. All right, we're going to go ahead and move into our last topic of the evening, a very, very quick one. I'm going to get to my weekly recommendation here. I've been doing TV shows as of late, and I had a movie and its sequel as my original pick, but I remembered that, or I didn't remember. I figured that the majority of people had probably seen them already. My original picks were The Raid and The Raid 2. Which are both now available on streaming, which is why I'm doing this. I'm only recommending stuff that is on streaming. And so The Raid and The Raid 2 were put on streaming last month. And so if you want to go watch them, if you've never watched them, they are now available. But I went a different direction this week. And I went with a movie that's very similar in the same vein. It has a couple of the same actors in it. And that is a movie called The Night Comes for Us. I wish I had a wallpaper to show an image of. I apologize. But you can kind of see it down here in the corner. It's called The Night Comes for Us. It's actually a Netflix original. And it stars Iko Uwais and Joe Taslim, who are 2 of the main guys in the Raid films, at least the first one. Joe Taslim plays, not Scorpion, but the ice dude in Mortal Kombat. I'm forgetting his name. Sub-Zero. He plays Sub-Zero in the new Mortal Kombat. But they're both in this, and this movie is just as action-packed as the Raid movies are. It is so good. It's another foreign language film, so there are subtitles or the foreign language that you can listen to. It's on Netflix. I cannot recommend it enough. It's definitely a sleeper, an underrated film that people do not talk about because The Raid is kind of like the thing in that genre, those types of movies. This movie is just as good. It is awesome. So if you have seen the Raid films, if you like those movies, you will like this. I promise you. And if you have not seen the Raid movies, go watch the Raid movies and then watch this. Think of them as a 3-pack. It's a great 3-pack. They're not connected. The Night Comes for Us is a completely separate story, but I definitely recommend watching this. It's on Netflix. It's a Netflix original, so it's on there all the time. Yeah, I cannot recommend it enough. So, Booze, glad to hear you're watching Silo, man. Either comment here on the next show once you finish, or message me. That ending is everything, dude. So let me know what you think of it. But yes, that's going to wrap up tonight's show, everybody. I appreciate you guys for joining me, as always. To everyone who joins me live every week, I cannot thank you guys enough. You guys are awesome. I love you guys. Again, go check out Nelson Brothers Classic Bourbon. They have a bunch of bourbons on their roster, some really, really good stuff. And I think this is definitely one of the better ones. It's their original classic style bourbon whiskey. You cannot go wrong with it. They are very, very good at what they do. And if you want a good, just kind of classic style bourbon whiskey on your shelf, this is definitely one to look out for. So I appreciate you guys for watching. Thank you so much for joining me in the live chat. If you're watching in the replay, thank you guys so much for the support. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button. It really helps these videos get seen, to get more people in this audience, in this community with us every single week. And I would love to, have more people in these chats. And the only way that can happen, if you guys like it, comment, share it. If you're interacting with this video, it gets seen by more people. So make sure you're doing that. I greatly appreciate it. Have a great rest of your week, everybody. Have a great 4th of July. Doing fireworks, eating good food, whatever you may be doing. Stay safe out there as well. The most dangerous holiday in the universe. So make sure you're staying safe. And I'll catch you guys next week on the Whiskey Jedi. Thanks again, guys. Good night.